No one imagined that something like this could happen. At first, it seemed like just another meeting, another exchange of casual words, just another random occurrence. But it wasn't. There was something different in the gaze, in the way time slowed down, in the silence that felt comforting rather than uncomfortable. Something that couldn't be explained, only felt, almost disturbingly, as if a dormant part had been awakened without warning. This isn't a coincidence. It's not an illusion. It's presence. It's a connection that transcends logic, that escapes formulas, breaking down any resistance without effort. It's not common, it doesn't happen all the time, and when it does, everything around changes, even if no one says a word. It's rare, it's spiritual, it's alive, and there's no longer any way to pretend it's not there. No one knew. No words were spoken at the beginning. No gesture seemed to indicate what was to come, and yet there was something there, something that didn't need to be pointed out to begin to grow. Because certain presences don't announce themselves. They infiltrate. They disarm slowly. They confuse certainties that seemed too solid to be shaken. From the outside, everything seemed ordinary. But internally, time began to move in a strange way. The hours didn't weigh heavy. The space around them shrank. Breathing shifted its rhythm, even without noticing. That's how it started. Not with promises, not with rehearsed lines, but with the kind of energy that disturbs, that activates something that had been silent for far too long. And when you realize it, it's already too late, because the body is already involved, the mind is already divided, and the heart, it no longer follows any old plans. At first, denial comes as a defense, because accepting what you don't understand is almost impossible, especially when everything you know has been based on predictable, safe, lukewarm relationships. And this was never lukewarm. There's something in this connection that refuses to be defined. That doesn't settle, it demands presence, it allows no distractions. This is not about enchantment. This is not about a fleeting passion. It's something denser, more unstable. It's as if two incompatible frequencies met, and instead of repelling each other, decided to merge. And that's frightening, because any fusion brings loss, and losing control, even for someone who awakens the deepest parts of us, is still a risk that few are willing to take. But the truth is that at some point, fear becomes small in the face of intensity. When eyes find what they're not looking for, when a voice makes an impact without raising its tone, when presence weighs even in absence, you can no longer pretend that nothing is happening. It's rare, and precisely for that reason uncomfortable, because rarity demands awareness. And awareness requires courage. Courage to feel even without understanding. Courage to remain even without a promise. Courage to surrender even without a guarantee. This connection follows no logic. It doesn't mold to expectations. It doesn't respond to attempts at control. It simply happens. With or without permission. Some run away, some try to rationalize. But the fact is that once you feel this, the old pattern no longer serves. Nothing goes back to being enough. The memory invades in the details, in the touch that never happened, in the silence that echoed as if it contained words, in the gaze that lingered too long without breaking. And all of this accumulates, until the moment denying it becomes more painful than accepting it. Until the moment resisting no longer makes sense, because the soul recognizes before the mind accepts, and the body feels before the word arrives. This connection has invisible roots. It comes from before, from far away, from places that no one can reach through rational effort, and when it happens, it transforms. It tears away layers, it dismantles beliefs, it deconstructs what was comfortable, and for that reason stagnant. It's not beautiful all the time, it's not light, it's not easy to maintain, but it is alive. It is real. Only what is real has the power to truly move us. There's no going back after this. There's no distraction that can fill the void. There's no other body that can replace it. Because it's not the body that holds us. It's the frequency. It's what vibrates even when skin doesn't touch. It's what burns when the other is absent. It's what calls in silence, without noise, without a scene. This connection. It's what happens when two souls that have been searching for each other for a long time finally meet, but don't know what to do with that. And because they don't know, they hesitate. But hesitation doesn't last long, because what belongs to the soul cannot be undone by fear. It doesn't unravel. It may be postponed, ignored, silenced, but it stays. Even when everything crumbles, even when time passes, even when life pushes us far away, this thing, this invisible intertwining, continues to exist. And the more you try to pretend it doesn't matter, the more it grows, the more it throbs, the more it cries out to be lived. It doesn't need a title. It doesn't need a name. Because what exists here doesn't fit into any definition. It's rare. It's spiritual. It's visceral. And it doesn't matter how long it takes or what happens outside. When this kind of connection appears, no one comes out unscathed. The truth is that no one teaches you what to do when this kind of thing happens. There's no manual for recognizing the impact of a gaze that pierces through. Even less so for accepting that, even without touch, something inside has already changed. Life goes on, but not in the same way. Because even when everything returns to normal, what was felt continues to pulse beneath the skin, disguised, but present. Every place leaves traces. Every meaningless conversation turns into noise. Every new face is compared, even without wanting to that which cannot be replaced. And it's not about longing, it's not cheap nostalgia. It's something more complex, as if the body is always waiting for a frequency that only one person emits. And the rest is just noise. Time tries to erase. Routine tries to silence. But there's always that second before you sleep. That emptiness that insists on reminding, without image, without sound, just presence. A presence that doesn't rely on space. And it hurts, because it can't be touched. It can't be demanded, it can't be explained. The only thing that can be done is to feel. And to feel too much when you can't live is a slow way to lose control. It's at this point that many give up. They try to force forgetting, to replace, to rationalize. But there's always that moment when something escapes. A scent, a sound, a phrase spoken by someone who doesn't even know what they're talking about. And just like that, the connection returns as if it had never left. Because it never left. It merely hid itself among deeper layers, waiting for the time to emerge again. And when it comes back, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't give a warning. It doesn't negotiate. It breaks through. The truth is that the feeling doesn't disappear. It just changes its clothes. It disguises itself as distraction. It masks itself with life goes on. But does it really? Or is everything after this just an attempt at forced adaptation? Perhaps that's why, over time, the eyes lose their sparkle, because it wasn't time that extinguished it. It was the absence of what made everything truly vibrate. This connection isn't perfect. It challenges, it unbalances, it demands. But precisely for that reason, it's authentic. Nothing compares to what you feel when it's present. And because of that, it's impossible to ignore when it leaves. Its absence isn't the absence of someone. It's the absence of oneself. Because when that energy touches, it reveals a piece of the soul that you didn't know existed. And after that, any attempt to go back to who you were feels too small. There are nights when the pillow becomes an accomplice, not for comfort, but because it's the only one that bears the weight of a feeling that can't be voiced. There are days when the body is there, but the mind is far away, searching for that instant that no one else saw, but that changed everything. And the cruelest part of all this is knowing. This person felt it too. They noticed it as well, but maybe they were more afraid, or had less time, or had some other pain too hidden to allow for surrender, but they felt it. Because this kind of connection doesn't happen unilaterally. It's mutual, even when it's silent. And anyone who experiences something like this, even for just a moment, can never fit back into the ordinary. Some prefer to forget. Some run from everything that reminds them. But the body that doesn't forget, it holds on and waits. Waits for the day when the truth no longer needs to be suffocated. Waits for the day when pride isn't worth more than feeling. Waits for a point in time when what was interrupted can finally be lived. But until then, it just carries on. With that invisible weight that only someone who has felt it can understand, with that silence that speaks louder than any word. with that presence that insists on existing even in distance, and with that bitter certainty, after this, nothing else is enough. And it's strange, because even after everything, there's still something there, even without touch, even without speech, even without presence. It's the kind of thing that no one can explain, but you feel it. As if time doesn't have enough strength to erase it, as if there were something that insists on existing even after the end, not a declared end. But that kind of end that happens slowly, through absence, hesitation, fear. The kind of end no one had the courage to confront, but still it left everything in ruins. Because it wasn't just about being close. It was the way the worlds collided without warning, without logic. It was how, even without knowing, one filled the silence of the other. It was something that didn't need to be said, but was in everything. And maybe that's why it hurt so much. Because the connection remained, but the person did not. And now everything is a living memory. A memory that doesn't fade because it wasn't lived to the end. A memory that insists, that demands, that burns. It shows up in the details, in the name that pops up out of nowhere, in the song that plays in the middle of the crowd. In the sentence someone says, unknowingly opening an old wound, and no one sees it, because those who feel hide, not out of weakness, but because they've grown tired of appearing vulnerable over something the world doesn't understand, because the world likes what is clear, what has a beginning, middle, and end, what can be explained logically. But this never fit into any of those places. It was soul, it was vibration, it was frequency, and now it's absence. An absence that cannot be resolved with substitutions, that doesn't fade with time, that cannot be negotiated with distractions. It's that feeling that something is incomplete, that there was more, much more, and no one had the courage to cross over. And now everything has turned into silence, but not an empty silence, a heavy silence, full of unasked questions, of unspoken answers, of encounters that never happened, yet somehow they are still alive. Because as long as there is memory, there will be connection, even if bodies are far apart, even if paths have taken different directions. This bond does not depend on physical presence. It predates any touch. It lives in the spaces between words, in dreams, in involuntary shivers. It appears when no one is watching, when no one is expecting it, and when it appears, nothing can hold it back. It's as if the soul was screaming inside, not in despair, but with truth, with that kind of truth that doesn't ask for permission to be felt. And it's there, present, intense, latent, waiting for at some moment someone to look with enough courage to say, I know what this is. I felt it too. It's still here. Because yes, it is still here. No matter the time, no matter the distance, no matter the other names, the other bodies, the other days. There are connections that do not unravel. There are stories that do not end. There are feelings that refuse to be buried. They remain, they hurt, they transform, and they wait. They wait for a gesture, for a sign, for a moment of clarity amid the chaos. They hope that one day someone will have the courage to return, not to repeat, but to truly live what was interrupted. And if that day never comes, that's okay, because what was felt has already fulfilled its role, to reveal what was dormant, to awaken what was denied, to show that it is possible, yes, possible, to feel something that doesn't need a name, shape, or rules. It just needs to be. If any part of this text has remained silent within the reader, it's because it's not just a text, it's not just words. It's memory. It's a mirror. Those who have felt something that cannot be explained know there are connections that do not break with time. They remain there, even in absence, even in denial, because what is real never disappears. It only transforms into a living absence, presence without a body, a story without an end. And deep down one knows it wasn't imagined. One knows because the body remembers, because the memory burns effortlessly, because there are days when life moves on, but doesn't resonate like it did before. That's why this message isn't just to be read, it's to be felt, to be recognized, and to touch those who have also lived it but never had a place to express it. Share it, but not in a spreading way. Share it as someone returning, as someone who takes this vibration to someone who needs to remember, or understand, or simply feel that they are not alone in this. And comment. Leave in the comment space what couldn't be said aloud. Even if it's just 2 words, even if it's just a name. Sometimes that's enough to open a door that has been locked for too long. This space here is not about answers. It's about truth, about presence, about what still pulses, even when everything seems silent. If this touched you, if any part of what was said resonated with you, subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but because here, each text is a different mirror. And maybe the next one will find you at a moment when everything seems invisible. And yes, leave a like, not out of vanity, but because the further this message goes, the greater the chance it will find other souls who are also feeling, but don't know how to express it. Maybe even it will find that person, the one who also felt, but didn't have the courage to return.